Hey, Atomo here, and today I'm going to be reading A Reason to Keep Surviving by Angst Rat.
This is a trigger-heavy hurt comfort piece. I will be reading the warnings, but if you have any idea that this might not be for you, please do not watch it. I do not want to trigger anyone. But without further ado, please take care of yourself, alright?
The triggers are bullying, violence, suicide baiting, description of panic attacks, attempted murder, swearing, attempted kidnapping, very brief mentions of human trafficking, self-harm, child neglect, bad parenting, attempted suicide, attempted overdose, medical neglect, and vomiting. If you are sensitive to any of these, please do not watch this and go and click on to a different video. I have been granted permission to read this fiction,
By the author Angst Rat.
and I do not recommend you attempt any of the things mentioned previously. If you or someone you know is suffering from these things, I request that you please try and get some help.
This is a one-chapter piece, just under 9,000 words, but there are other parts in the series, but this is read as one shot. The summary reads as follows.
Midoriya Izuku has survived his entire life, and every day it seems to get harder and harder to keep going. Not even in his wildest dreams did he expect for a cat to become his reason to keep surviving. Chapter 1. Stupid fucking Deku! I'll fucking kill you! Bakugo snarls, hands popping with explosions, the pop, 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 bringing memories of pain, agony, pain. His face is twisted with anger and hatred. It seems to be the only expression Bakugo has when he's around the smaller boy. Please, Izuku whispers, voice cracking pathetically, tears dripping from his dull green eyes down his freckled cheeks, the constellations sometimes interrupted by scar tissue. His chest squeezes as vines wrap around his lungs, thorns digging in painfully as the pure liquid panic fills his chest until he can't breathe. You'd think he'd already be used to this, to violent touches and words dripping with hostility, but every time panic takes over the boy and fills his head with screams of terror, with the bone-chilling thought of, will they go too far this time? Boisterous laughter drowns the 13-year-old's pained whines as his classmates circle him, curled up in a protective ball. A kick to his back makes Izuku cough painfully and his breathing wheezes. The boy just wanted it all to stop. He did not know what he had done, but he must have done something to deserve all this. Maybe he had been too annoying, too stupid, too Deku-like. Just too much. It seemed he could never stay in line, never learn his lesson, never be good enough. All he could do was be a quirkless, useless, stupid Deku. Izuku's ears ring with explosions, insults, and laughter, as suddenly his head is pulled back by his dark, almost black, green curls. The boy has to clench his teeth to bite back scared whimpers. He is terrified. Red, burning eyes stare back at him as explosions light in the hand that is clenched around his ear. Izuku can't breathe. He is too scared. It's too much. He can't take it. Izuku can't take it anymore. His chest squeezes terribly as his heart feels like it's going to stop out of pure fear. Tears drip down Izuku's cheeks as he begs for mercy with his eyes, but Bakugo's eyes are hard, unfeeling. The small little boy in Izuku cries, "Why isn't Kacchan our friend anymore? What did we do? Why is he so mean? We were supposed to be heroes together." "You should just fucking kill yourself. You'd do everyone a favor." The words burn with hatred, just as much as those red eyes do, and Izuku sobs violently, squeezing his eyes shut. Why did everyone hate him so much? Izuku's sorrow-filled thoughts get cut out as suddenly there's a burning hot hand wrapping around his throat. The boy's eyes slam open and shook, and all he can see is red, red, red. Now Izuku truly cannot breathe. Now it isn't just his panic and fear choking him, pressing his chest down. Now it's something real, and Izuku has never been as afraid in his life. Bakugo moves to straddle his chest. Both warm, hot, burning hands wrap around Izuku's throat. The small boy can't help the tears streaming from his eyes, nor the reflex to fight back, to survive. You fucker! I'll fucking kill you myself! It feels like Izuku just blinks, and then suddenly his fist collides with Bakugo's face in a poorly formed punch. It does absolutely nothing for the bigger boy, but the surprise of Deku suddenly fighting back was enough. Izuku is able to squirm away by some miracle. The relief feels like fresh air filling his lungs as the vines wrapped around his lungs loosen slightly. But it doesn't last long. Bakugo is furious. Explosions from his hands grow bigger and bigger, and the smell of burning chokes Izuku as a thought fills his mind, not leaving room for anything else. He's going to die. Panic fills him in a new way. Instead of freezing him in place, roots growing from the ground trying him in place, forcing him to take it. The pain forces him to move. His body shakes violently as he stumbles away towards the main roads, away from the small alleyway close to a school. Izuku's mind screams at him to run, run, run. They're going to kill you. You need to run. He's getting away! One of his classmates yells, and Izuku lets out a desperate sob, forcing his legs to take him faster. Panic courses through him like electricity. They're going to get you. They're going to get you. You need to run, run, run. It feels as if his heart stops as strong. Bruising hands wrap around his arms, pulling him back violently. A wail-like sob leaves the boy as he realizes he wasn't enough yet again. His brain screams at him, useless, stupid, Deku, you'll never do anything right. Now he's going to get killed, and it's all his own fault. It feels like he is getting shocked by electricity as the need to get away, the need to run, pulses through him, making him tremble violently, and his legs kick in a desperate attempt to escape. Izuku barely notices himself getting dragged back to the end of the alley, panic clouding his vision and filling his head with wasps, buzzing until there's no room for thoughts. Only his head hitting the ground brings him back, white, flashing, hot pain radiating from the back of his head. Suddenly, hands are wrapping around his arms and legs, pinning him down. This time, Izuku does not fight. He just takes it, like he is supposed to. It's his fault anyway. This is what he deserves. He forces the instinct to survive down. Maybe it's good if he dies. It wouldn't make many people's lives easier, more enjoyable. Still, he can't help the fear coursing through him, his natural survival instincts sending signals of panic to his brain. The mix of fear, the need to survive, and just the need to give up makes Suzuki dizzy as his mind fights against itself. Terror chokes him as Bakugo resumes his spot, sitting on top of Izuku's chest, face twisted with rage as his hands go back around Izuku's throat. His brain registers only agony as explosions burn his neck, his vision flashing right as a raw scream rips from his chest. Shut up, Deku! The boy barely registers a hand slapping his face, his head getting filled with burning, hot agony, even if the explosion stopped already. His whole neck is alight with torturous pain. The smell of metal, burning flesh, and the sickeningly sweet scent of nitroglycerin choke Izuku as he takes it in a gasping, panicked breath. Before the boy has any time to recover, Bakugo's hands go back around his throat, ripping another scream from Bakugo as those burning hot hands settle on top of the raw skin of his throat. This time, the hands squeeze. Izuku's mind blanks with pure panic. He is going to die. Bakugo is going to kill him. It does not take long for Izuku's lungs to start burning, begging for air. His head screams and screams and screams. You need air. You will die. You need to breathe. This is what you deserve. Bakugo is doing everyone a favor. You need to breathe. You need to breathe now. This is what a Deku like you deserves. I don't want to die. I want to die. I don't want this. This is what I deserve. Izuku doesn't know what does it. panic or Bakugo, but finally he loses consciousness. All he can do is be thankful that it's over. Meow. What? Izuku blinks his blurry eyes. He didn't die? Another meow takes his attention. The boy tries to sit up, but everything hurts. His breathing is wheezing loudly, and air doesn't seem to pass properly. His head is pounding with a headache, and his whole body feels like a bruise. Tears are still drying on his cheeks, and Izuku can't remember the cause of them. The memory of pure terror is still clear in his mind. As his breathing starts to pick up at the memories of pain, laughter, pain, panic, pain, 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 a cat appears above his face. Izuku just blinks at it. Mind half stuck in the past, burning red eyes stare at him behind his eyelids. Boisterous laughter and his own screams ringing in his ears. Meow! The cat lets out, flashing its white teeth as it stares back at the boy. Izuku blinks violently to get rid of the memories flashing in his mind, pressing his fingers into the bruise on his side to ground himself. When he is steadily in the present moment, he looks at the deep black eyes of the feline, shining with intelligence and understanding. Animals with quirks, of course, weren't impossible, but very, very rare. Izuku lets out a wheezing laugh, turning into a painful coughing fit. A quirkless boy and a quirked cat. They both went against the odds. Huh. Another worried meow leaves the cat as it moves aside to give Izuku space as he coughs, feeling like he's going to hack his lung out. Feels like forever before he stops coughing. His throat feels raw, like an open wound, and his body screams with pain. His classmates really beat him up this time. It's honestly a miracle he's not dead, and Izuku can't decide if he's relieved or disappointed they didn't finish the job. Hi, Izuku wheezes out at the cat as he sits up against his body, telling him otherwise. His ribs sending signals of pain everywhere in his body, dried blood pooling out of his skin, and his head pounding with pain. Still, he needs to get going soon. It's getting dark, and quirkless people were prime stuff in the black market. The boy shivers as he thinks about some close calls he had experienced in the past. Yeah, he needs to leave. The cat blinks at him, eyes glittering with worry. It must have a home, as its black fur is shiny and healthy-looking, if not a little messy, and it doesn't seem too skinny. Slowly but steadily, the feline approaches Izuku until it's almost touching his leg. Then slowly and carefully it butts his head against the boy with a soft trill. Izuku smiles weakly, resisting the urge to try and pet the cat, as he doesn't want to push any boundaries. For the first time in a long time, he feels comforted. Yes, he is beat up and in active danger, and the memories of panic still haunt his mind, but right there, with the cat rubbing its neck and head all over his legs and torso, he feels okay. It's such a simple gesture, but it's more than Izuku has gotten in a long time. The clear affection warms him all over and brings a bigger smile to his face. The feline glances at him, seemingly satisfied with what it sees. Sadly, the boy really has to leave. It's getting very late, and one near-death experience was enough for him. His heart aches with his body. He will cherish the memory of this for a long time. Sorry, but I really have to leave, Izuku whispers softly, moving away from the cat. He yells at Izuku, but doesn't try to stop him. Slowly, the boy gets up, his torso screaming with pain, and his world tilting dangerously as he tries not to fall back down. Cautiously, he takes a few steps. His body hurts. It hurts so much, and he definitely is not supposed to be walking. But he needs to get to his house. He can pass out there. The boy doesn't get very far when he notices the cat is walking next to him, tail held high. Izuku glances at it with another smile. It seems like he had an escort to home. You can come with me, but I can't take you inside. Then you have to go back to your own home, okay? Izuku whispers with a weak voice. He can feel his throat protesting with every word, burning and aching every time he breathes or swallows. The cat just meows in reply, but Izuku knows it understands by the intelligence shining in its eyes. It must have a quirk, and it seems to understand everything Izuku says. Too soon they arrive at a run-down apartment building. Izuku lets out a sad sigh, turning to look at his companion. Black eyes look back, staring intently, pupils large. I'm sorry, but this is a goodbye, Izuku forces out through his swelling throat. His breath wheezes in a worrying way, and the world tilts dangerously every time he moves too fast. But it's okay. He's almost home, and then he can pass out in safety. The feline doesn't say or do anything, just continues staring. Izuku smiles once more, waving at the cat before he walks inside. It was nice having someone care for once. Izuku sobs violently, gasping for air through his muffled wails, pressing his hands to his mouth, and his back slides against the alleyway wall until he's sitting down on the ground. His surroundings are filthy, but so is he. Disgustingly weird. Nasty. It feels like his heart is trying to escape his horrible, awful body as it hammers against his chest painfully. Blood rushes in his ears and panic fills his chest with liquid until he can't breathe. The boy's skin is crawling with ants made of pure anxiety, sending mixed signals in his mind. You need to run. You need to go now. You need to die. Stupid useless fuck. Can't keep it together for 2 minutes. They're going to kill you. You're going to die. You deserve to die. You need to run. It's not safe. Nowhere is safe for a defu like you. His arms clench around his legs as he sits there, curled up, biting back soft and whines, trying to breathe, but he can't. Izuku's body shakes violently, twitching with the need to run. Still, it feels like he has yet again been rooted to place with vines of fear. The inability to move at all sends more panic through him. It's not safe. There had been someone by the gates of his school, someone unfamiliar, too old to be a middle schooler. They had known about Izuku. They had been waiting. In one blink, they were there, in front of the boy, hands wrapping around him and carrying him towards a van. No one cared. Izuku had seen his peers, even his teachers, just watching there, either laughing, smirking, or just ignoring what was happening. With his weak body, he could not fight back. It had been only a week from the time he had almost been killed by Bakugo, and he had been in school condition only a few days. He was not in the shape to fight a muscular adult. He is weak, pathetic. On a normal day, he had no chance. Still, from somewhere deep inside his brain rose his analytical skills, the ones he had buried deep, deep, because a Deku could not be good at anything. Eyes, his mind had screamed. His attacker, wearing only a medical mask to cover their identity, was holding the squirming body, so they were face to face. Izuku just needed to get his hand free. With his mind blank with fear, Izuku had bitten the person on the shoulder, their hand loosening so the boy could get his friend free. And without hesitation, he poked his finger to their eye. The shock was enough, and soon Izuku was free, and he was running for his life, until panic took over him, and he ended up in an alleyway in a busier part of the city. Izuku's skin crawls with the possibilities of what could happen to him if he had not gotten away. Death would have been a mercy at that point, his brain flashing with him with images of getting sold, assaulted, used, taken. Meow. A violent flinch. Izuku raises his head, looking around, absolutely terrified that they had found him, but then his eyes met familiar black ones. Slowly Izuku relaxes just a fraction. It's that cat from 2 weeks ago. Its black fur is as shiny as ever, and its deep midnight black eyes still shine with intelligence. Izuku cracks out. His crying and sobbing had done nothing good to his still recovering throat. He had just gotten his voice back a couple of days ago, but now he might lose again. Not that he had anyone to talk to. The boy gets a meow in reply, and then the feline is as graceful as always, walking to him. It blinks at Izuku slowly and then butts its head against Izuku's hand, still clenched against his legs, nails digging through his school uniform. With a faint smile, Izuku releases his hand and moves to sit cross-legged, opening his lap to the cat. It didn't hesitate, and soon Izuku has a lap full of purring void. Once again, Izuku feels warm, cared for, and appreciated. This one cat truly is the first one to care about him for who knows how long. That was to assume the feline cared about him, and wasn't just there for the cuddles. But even if it is like that, the boy would still cherish the attention. Izuku jumps in surprise as he suddenly feels something rough run through his scarred hand. He looks down to see the cat. Grooming him? The boy's small smile grows into a bigger one, the last of his panic leaving his body. He doesn't even feel anxious, just, okay, maybe even good. This cat is taking more care of him than his father ever had, and his mother doesn't have time to. He clenches his eyes shut against the feelings of abandonment starting to choke him, trying his best to get rid of them, not wanting to ruin the moment of peace granted to him. He should be thankful. A lot of mothers would have left their kid if they turned out to be crookless, but his mother stayed, took care of him. So what if him being crookless made it so that she couldn't get a good job, and she had to basically live at work to get enough money to keep both herself and Izuku alive? Truly, Izuku would do her a big favor if he just killed himself. Mentally shaking his head, Izuku turns to the cat, meowing loudly, demanding his attention after noticing his thoughts started to drift. Izuku smiles again, the expression coming easier than ever as he watches the cat resume its grooming and purring. Slowly and carefully, the boy offers his hand to the cat. It stops, licking his thigh, covered with his pants, to sniff at the hand carefully, clearly approving as it gives a few licks. Izuku decides to take that as permission. Softly and so very carefully, pressing his hand to the cat's fur, combing his fingers through a few times. The feline starts purring louder, like a little machine, and Izuku can't help his wide smile as he enjoys the soft fur. He can stay like this for the rest of his life. Normally, he was scared of animals. To be honest, they didn't usually approach him like this. Maybe they smelt the quirklessness, freakishness of him and didn't want anything to do with him. Still, one time, his neighbors had released their very eager dog after him. Izuku still remembers the pure terror running through him as he ran as fast as he could. After that, he had made sure to stay out of the animal's way, fear choking him every time one came close to him. But this cat was just so special. More than its clear intelligence, it seemed to understand him in ways not even humans understood. It seemed to want to take care of Izuku, and that was something the boy had not experienced in a long time. The cat sniffed his lap, and Izuku immediately took his hand away, waiting, watching, trying his best to read the feline and see if he did something wrong. Thankfully, the cat just changes its position, curling up into a ball on the boy's lap, staring at him intently with its black eyes until Izuku resumes his petting. Then the feline just closes its eyes, purring loudly. Seems like Izuku isn't leaving anytime soon, and truly, he's okay with it. After that meeting, the cat followed him everywhere. It had been a week, and anywhere Izuku went, the same black cat followed him. It never came inside any buildings, but somehow Izuku couldn't be outside for more than 15 minutes before he had a little void shadow. The boy loved it all. It made him feel so seen and cared for. It was ridiculous, a cat caring for him like a parent, but Izuku didn't have the willpower to care. The boy hadn't gone to school after the incident, deeming it too unsafe. Because of that, he had a lot of free time, and usually the empty apartment felt too suffocating. So during daylight, the boy spent most of his time outside, finding places like abandoned parks to hang out in peace. Far enough from his school and house that no one there knew of his condition. For the first time in forever, Izuku feels fine. He feels relatively safe and at peace. Just him and the feline caring for him. Of course, when the sun started setting and Izuku headed home, giving one last pet to the cat in goodbye and went inside, the dark thoughts came. Self-hatred, guilt, anger, sadness, all of it drowning him until he isn't able to breathe. Izuku had gotten into the habit of taking scalding hot showers to keep the thoughts and feelings away, forcing himself to take it until he couldn't, until the terrible pain silenced his awful, horrible thoughts, until his skin turned bright red with darker red blotches and felt raw, and he couldn't stop shaking, and he felt too cold and too hot at the same time. He would crawl into bed and fall asleep. It had turned into a routine, and Izuku was pretty sure the cat knew, sometimes licking his raw skin with sad meows, but Izuku couldn't stop. He needed to cope somehow, and if this is what it took, then so be it. With a sad sigh, Izuku turns to look at the feline purring on his lap, kneading his legs with its claws carefully tucked away. There had been an incident a couple days ago where a cat had played with Izuku's hands and accidentally scratched the boy's arms. The unexpected pain had sent the boy into a violent flashback that quickly turned into a panic attack. It had taken a long time for Izuku to come back from that, only to see the cat desperately licking and pawing at him, trying to get his attention, to bring him back from the memories of pain, agony, suffering. Izuku had easily forgiven the cat, even if he still was jumpy around it. But after that, the feline had been very careful to keep his claws tucked away. A small yowl takes Izuku's attention, and he smiles at the cat, staring at him intently. "What's up?" Izuku asks in a small voice, carefully scratching under the cat's chin, smiling at the loud purring. Suddenly it moves, making Izuku jump softly. But they both had already gotten used to his jumpiness. The feline raises to stand on its back legs, front paws pressed to Izuku's chest, butting its head against Izuku's face, making the boy giggle softly. "Yeah, I like you too," he whispers. Right there, sitting in the sand of an abandoned playground, Izuku once again feels okay, content. His mind is silent, and any traces of panic or anxiety are gone. He can breathe freely and feel safe, cared for. Izuku chuckles softly at the mix of little meows and loud purring as the cat rubs its face all over Izuku's face and neck. Loud laughter shatters the moment, a shout of panic and fear piercing Izuku's chest and mind, his back straightening and shoulders raising to his ears. Without a thought, the boy is ready to take it, to just get it over with. Fighting would make it worse. He needs to be good. The cat leaves his lap, and some aggression, hissing, makes Izuku blink. A mix of terror and confusion, making him dizzy as he glances to the side to see the feline bare its teeth and hiss loudly, its fur standing on end and ears tucked back. Izuku can't decide between feeling happy someone is defending him or feeling absolutely terrified that now they're going to have the cat. Fearfully, Izuku turns to look behind himself, ready to face his attackers. He needs to defend the cat. It's the least he can do. But to his surprise, there is no one there. Only a group of teenagers walking down a path, ways away from Izuku. It must have been their laughter that he heard. They're not paying attention to the boy, hunched in the sand, only focused on each other. Some of them bursting out laughter again. Izuku feels embarrassed. He had been so sure someone had found him. But why would anyone he knows come here? To the edge of the city. Stupid. Izuku shakes his head violently, taking a couple of deep breaths, feeling the leftovers of panic and fear. His head still beating too fast, and blood rushing inside his veins. "Sorry," Izuku mumbles to the cat with a blush. It just blinks at him slowly before reclaiming its spot on Izuku's lap. Curling up there, it doesn't seem too mad about Izuku's overreaction. Still, anxiety is crawling under the boy's skin like ants, and fear runs through him like electricity at every little sound, so Izuku decides to move. He doesn't feel safe there anymore, the spot tainted by his panic and terror. I'm sorry, but I need to get up, okay? Izuku whispers gently to the cat. It raises its head to blanket him, before meowing and getting up gracefully, walking to the side, before waiting for Izuku to get up. He gives it an apologetic smile before getting up himself, wiping sand from his jeans. The boy and the cat start walking somewhere, side by side, with no clear direction in mind, but Izuku doesn't mind. As they walk through the streets of a smaller part of the city, Izuku talks. About nothing. He just talks. For so long that he had no one to talk to, so he decided to cherish having someone to speak to. He was afraid he was too much, too annoying, too loud, but the feline didn't seem to mind, sometimes meowing in reply to the things he said, or butting his head against his legs. The streets are pretty empty, everyone either at work or in school, so Izuku is relatively at peace. He lets his mouth run, smiling at his companion. It's peaceful. It's perfect. I think it's my birthday tomorrow, Izuku whispers out at one point, which gets a yell in reaction, and Izuku turns to look at the void next to him. What? He asks with a smile, turning to walk towards a beach, situated by a stream running through a small park. He sits on the back of the bench, letting the cat hop into his lap, pressing his fingers to the soft fur, petting it softly. The cat meows again before it closes his eyes.
Izuku huffs quietly. It seems like he once again isn't leaving any time soon. The cat had a habit of doing that, falling asleep on top of the boy and locking him in place. Izuku didn't mind. He loved the excuse to stay just a bit longer. As the feline sleeps, Izuku drifts. His mother had messaged him that she couldn't make it home tomorrow. Izuku had, of course, assured her that it was okay. He would never, ever tell her how much it all hurt him. He could already imagine how she would cry and blame herself if she ever found out about anything going on in his life. The boy wonders when he had last seen her. She always came home when he was already asleep, and left before he woke up. Sometimes the boy wonders how she wasn't burnt out already. Deep inside his brain, Izuku knows she must be lying about her whereabouts, but he wouldn't blame her. If he could, he would leave himself too. Izuku presses the apartment door closed behind himself, before swiftly walking down the stairs. His steps echoing in the stairway, he winces at the noise he is making. He makes sure to be quickly out of the building, stepping out into the soft sunlight. There, right in front of him, is a familiar cat he has learned to connect with safety. Hi, buddy. What do you have there? Izuku asks quietly, noticing the cat is carrying something in its mouth, its pupils wide, shining with excitement. Silently, Izuku hopes it's not a dead animal. He would not have the heart to get rid of it, but also he would very much rather not have to carry a dead animal with him. The boy's worries are soothed as a cat drops a teddy bear at his feet. Izuku looks at it with surprise, glancing at the feline to notice it blinking at him, clearly waiting for his judgment. Carefully, the boy kneels, taking the cream-colored teddy into his hand. It's small and a bit worn, but it seems clean. Thank you, Izuku whispers gratefully, leaning to pet the feline's head, scratching behind its ears. Only loud purrs. Distantly, he wonders where the cat got the teddy, but he chooses to ignore it and just be grateful. He doesn't remember the last time someone has got him anything. Let's go somewhere safer, okay? Izuku suggests quietly, shivering at the feeling of eyes all over him, starting, judging, calculating. The feline meows quietly in reply and starts heading somewhere with a soft smile. Izuku follows, deciding not to question it. He trusts this cat. Turns out the feline is leading him towards Dagoba Beach. Izuku hesitates for a bit, knowing how much trash is there, but after the cat just meows at him before continuing on confidently, Izuku just keeps following it. It's not in vain. As soon as they arrive at a trash-free spot by the edge of the beach, wind blowing by the other way so none of the smell reaches the area, Izuku stares at the view, smiling as he notices the female makes itself comfortable on the sand, a safe distance from the water. Carefully, the boy sits next to the cat, grinning as it instantly sits on his lap, licking at his hand, purring loudly as Izuku scratches it on all the good spots. "Thank you," Izuku chokes out, a gratefulness and unimaginable joy bringing tears to his eyes. A soft, furry head butts his hand a few times before the cat goes back to grooming him. Izuku stares out into the sea, enjoying the quiet sounds of the water hitting the shore and the cat purring in his lap. The sun is shining, making the feline's fur shine beautifully and painting Izuku with warm colors, making him look less pale and washed out. For the first time in a while, his eyes aren't dull, instead shining with emotion like they used to years ago. With the hand not petting the feline, Izuku takes the small stuffed teddy out of his pocket, pressing it at his chest, smiling softly. He would treasure the gift for the rest of his life. Tears drip down Izuku's freckled face as he smiles at the cat. For once in his life, he lets them. He doesn't hate himself for crying. He just accepts it. The cat purring on his lap turns to look at him, letting out a meow before carefully climbing onto Izuku's shoulder, pressing its face against his cheek as they both looked out to the sea. Izuku has found his own personal paradise. Izuku bites back sobs as he closes the apartment door behind himself. A fist formed out of guilt and sorrow, squeezing his heart, vines of panic building around his lungs, thorns digging deep, hurting, but nothing can hurt more than the expression on his mother's face. It had been unexpected, a complete surprise to the boy, but his mother had been home. Izuku had been ready to spend another day exploring with the cat he had gotten so familiar with, but his mother had been in the kitchen, preparing breakfast. First, Izuku had felt surprised, then confused, then so very carefully happy. Then his mother had turned to look at him. Izuku had understood why her expression fell, tears gathering in those green eyes, mirroring his own. But then he realized. The image of happiness, shuddering as he saw his mother was seeing. There was nothing but a t-shirt and sweatpants covering his horrible, disgusting body. The bones poking out, the horrific scars covering his skin like patchwork, constellations of freckles missing on the spots where there was just scar tissue. His skin so dry from the scalding showers that it was flaking on spots. Dark circles around his eyes, his pale, sickly skin, his hair a thin, unhealthy mess. She saw it all. Izuku was not prepared for her arrival to paint a fake picture of happiness and well-being, covering the husk of a human he had become with smiles, clothing, and makeup. The boy could feel her eyes burning into the still red and healing handprints wrapped around his neck, tears dripping down her cheeks, breakfast forgotten. In one moment Izuku was wrapped in a too-tight hug, tears soaking his shirt as his mother sobbed, "What is going on? Why didn't you tell me? Izuku, baby, are you okay? Please talk to me. Baby, I love you. You can trust me. Please tell me things. Please trust me. Why don't you trust me? I love you. I love you. I love you." Inko had sobbed and sobbed and sobbed, every single tear adding to the guilt choking him, to the rock pressure on top of his chest until he couldn't breathe. Izuku felt like a hideous monster, hurting his mother like this. Why didn't he listen before leaving his room? Why wasn't he prepared? Why is he this stupid? What was he thinking? It had taken hours for her to let him go. Only after he promised he would be okay did she let him leave, taking the excuse of needing something from the store easily. The lies felt like poison on his tongue. Didn't he hurt her enough? Still, he needed desperately to get away, to break down in peace. With choked breaths, Izuku steps outside, his heart dropping when he doesn't see the cat, when he doesn't see safety, comfort, love. Suddenly he feels angry, a thought dripping with acid filling his mind. Yeah, you leave me too. Not like I needed you anyways. Izuku hates himself for being angry, but even more than that, Izuku feels betrayed. He didn't know why. The cat had no obligation to be there for him. Of course the feline left him too. He shouldn't be surprised. He is a pathetic, quirkless, weak, disgusting Deku. Of course everyone will leave him in time. Inko probably won't even be at the apartment when he gets back. Izuku is just so tired of himself. Tears gathered in his eyes as he pulled his hood over his head, covering the green curls carefully. Then Izuku starts walking nowhere, just somewhere, anywhere but here. With wasps buzzing in his brain, whispering painful truths to him, Izuku heads towards a store, the closest one that doesn't know who he is. Ants crawl under his skin, reminding him he will never be safe anywhere. Numbness slowly fills Izuku, freezing him all over until there is nothing left inside him. The boy enters the store, eyes glued to his shoes as he makes his way through the aisles. Impulsively, without a thought, he gets a pack of razor blades and 2 bottles of painkillers, buying them silently and leaving quickly. The thought of, "You're not safe," like electricity in his spine. Izuku knows the painkillers will not be enough to do the job, but he just wants to do as much damage as possible. He deserves it, all and more. The boy's legs take him to the same alleyway where he first almost got killed all those weeks ago, where he first met the cat. He should really figure out a name to call it, huh? But it's too late now. It doesn't matter anymore. Nothing does. The cat has left him, and Izuku is going to kill himself. He feels weirdly light at the thought, like he is finally at peace with himself. He is going to kill himself. He is going to die. He isn't going to be alive anymore. With a soft smile on his face, Izuku sits down, leaning on the wall of a building. With empty eyes, he opens the box containing the painkillers, containing his freedom. A thought dripping with hatred comes as he realizes he has nothing to use to swallow the pills down. Stupid. Idiot. Deku. His mind screams. Still, Izuku knows how to improvise. Soon he is stuffing a handful of white, innocent pills in his mouth, not hesitating to chew on them, almost gaying at the strong taste. His mouth is dry as he swallows the first handful down and forces him to take another one. Soon, both of the pill bottles are empty. His mouth burns, and Izuku feels his stomach contract in an attempt to throw it up. But he clenches his teeth and forces himself to keep it down. His throat hurts as he breathes deeply, steadying his trembling hands. He isn't done yet. Izuku knows his time is ending as his stomach contracts again, and he hears the bustling of people outside the alleyway, so he makes himself hurry up. He rips the package containing the blades open, taking one in his hand and the other spilling to the ground like some twisted piece of art. Against all odds, he hasn't cut before in his life, sufficing the need to punish himself with 2 hot showers and scratching his skin and pulling his hair. The boy couldn't risk his mother ever seeing any self-inflicted scars. He could already imagine how she would cry. So this is a first for Izuku. But something deep inside him knows he is smart, no matter how much he tried to bury it deep inside, where no bullies would ever find it, and rip that part of him apart too. So Izuku knows what to do. With a deep, shaky breath, he slashes the blade vertically through his left wrist, clenching his teeth at the sickening pain. Blood gushes out, pooling in the wound, and quickly dripping over, gathering on the ground. His body shakes so badly that he can barely make a second one on his other wrist, but he is not planning on failing. Still, the second cut is less deep, but the amount of blood gushing and dripping down both of them should be enough. The blade drops to the ground as his body trembles violently and his hands quickly lose strength. Izuku feels nothing as he watches the blood dripping down and pooling on the ground, covering the other blades on the ground, adding to the art. Izuku feels like a shell of himself, just waiting for the pain that is his life to pass. His once green eyes, shining with curiosity and intelligence, are empty as he stares silently, shifting into a more comfortable position against the dirty wall. Izuku is ready to die. He has been for a long time. It's relieving. For once, there aren't any vines squeezing his lungs, or wasps buzzing in his head, or ants crawling under his skin. It's just him. The pain of the cuts is just an undertone in the mists of the peace covering his mind. It's nice not to be in pain for once. The boy feels his stomach clenching, but does not try to vomit again. Maybe his body agrees that it's time for him to go, to become a statistic on a website about quackless. Nothing more. It is nice, Izuku thinks distantly, dizziness covering his mind as the pool of blood grows. Then aloud, worried, meow, pierces the mists in his mind. No, no, guilt wraps its hands around Izuku's throat, squeezing, but more than that. Icy fear runs through his spine. He is scared, terrified that the cat will see him like this. Izuku is truly going to ruin the one good thing in his life. He had jumped to conclusions like the stupid Deku he is, and now he will pay. Please, please go away. Izuku whines through his labored breathing, blurry eyes trying to find the feline. The body's back straightens when he sees those familiar, comforting eyes staring back at him, shining with fear and worry. The sudden movement is enough for his constricting stomach, and suddenly Izuku is leaning to the side, violently throwing up. The burning brings tears to his eyes as he vomits, trying to keep himself from falling into it face first with his weak, shaking hands. When finally his body deems itself clean from the poisons Izuku had put in it, the boy leans back against the wall, sobs shaking him, tears dripping down his freckled face as his breathing is weak and labored. Suddenly, there are paws pressing against his legs, and Izuku's eyes flash open. The cat is yowling loudly, pouring out his legs, ignoring the blood pooling all around them. Its pupils are large, eyes sad, and so very scared. Please, please, go. You don't need to see this, Izuku whispers weakly, trying to push the cat away, but ending up just sending a stab of pain through his arms and smearing blood on that perfect soft fur. I'm sorry, Izuku sobs, guilt squeezing his chest. More meows ring out as the cat climbs to his lap, standing up until its paws press against Izuku's chest, butting its head against Izuku's tear-stained face. The fact that the cat is trying to comfort Izuku shatters the boy's heart. He doesn't deserve it, any of it. He seems to always end up hurting those important to him. The feeling had brought nothing but good in his life, and Izuku just ended up hurting it. I'm sorry, so sorry, Izuku whispers again, pressing his face back to the cat. His vision darkens on the edges, and the world tilts dangerously. Izuku knows it's time. He is finally going to go to sleep. The boy's eyes press closed, and worried, yowling echoes in the alleyway, a paw pressing against his face. But Izuku is just too tired to open his eyes. Another apology is on the tip of his tongue, but his mouth feels too heavy to produce the words. Izuku can still hear helpless meowing through the cotton on his ears, and one more stab of guilt hits him. Then suddenly Izuku hears barking. Someone must be about to find him. Too bad. It's too late already. Familiar hissing responds to the barks, and then there's a high-pitched scream piercing through Izuku's misty mind. The boy sends a distant apology to whoever finds him. The last thing Izuku hears before passing out, finally finding peace, is a yell dripping with sorrow. It had been months. Time had been weird lately, so Izuku wasn't exactly sure how many, but he just knew it had been a long time. At first, he had stayed at a hospital for a few hours when they stitched him up and pumped the painkillers out of his stomach. When he wasn't instantly about to die, they kicked him out. They didn't have the resources to treat someone like him, someone who was going to die soon anyways, if the statistics were anything to believe. Sadly, though, they had called his mother, and oh, how she had cried and sobbed. Why, Izuku? Why did I do? Why didn't you tell me, Izuku? How could you do this, Izuku? Guilt crushed him, squeezed him until his ribs cracked and breathing was impossible. After that, there hadn't been a day where Inko did not cry. When she didn't look at him with that dejected look in her eyes, when she didn't stare at him, his scars and imperfections. Because no psych ward would take someone quirkless, Inko decided to do it herself. Izuku's door was to be open at all times. He couldn't lock the bathroom door when he used it. Inko would come knocking every 5 minutes. He wasn't allowed out. Inko monitoring his eating, his sleeping, his existing. Izuku wanted to be thankful. This is what he wanted, after all, someone to care for him. But he wasn't. It felt like there had been an ocean between him and his mother for years, and now he was suddenly supposed to welcome her back into his life? To tell her everything? How could he tell her anything when she was always looking at him with her heartbroken gaze, tears in her eyes? The boy hated himself for doing this to her. During that time, Izuku had just drifted, not completely there. He refused to think about anything, because every time he did, he ended up thinking about a certain black cat. The guilt and self-hatred made him want to dig his fingers in his chest and rip himself apart until he couldn't feel anything anymore. So instead, Izuku drifted, heavy mist covering his mind. It has been like that for months now, but Inko had to go back to work. She had taken time off for him, but her bosses had forced her back. For the first time in months, Izuku is alone and free to do anything he wants to. He had briefly considered trying to kill himself again, but every time he thought about it, his mind would flash him memories of wide, terrified black eyes and sorrowful meowing, so at least for now, Izuku would not try again. The boy clenches his eyes shut for a moment before pulling his hood to cover his messy hair and starting to walk. Izuku has a clear destination. It feels like he is doing something forbidden, being alone for the first time in a long while. His skin crawls with that familiar feeling of not being safe, but he ignores it, like he always does. When Izuku finally arrives at his destination, he stops walking and looks up from where his eyes had been glued to the ground. His eyes roam the familiar alleyway. There was no signs of what he had done there. Rain must have washed the blood and vomit away, and someone must have taken the blades. Somehow it makes Izuku feel empty inside. It seems metaphorical. That's how his death would have been. After his mum would have gotten hurt over him, his memory would have been washed away, leaving no traces of a Midoriya Izuku ever existing. A meow cuts out Izuku's melancholy thoughts, and his head whips to look towards the sound. There, a few meters away from him, is that so very familiar black cat, deep onyx eyes staring intensely at Izuku, pupils huge. The boy barely notices the sob ripping out from his chest. All the guilt and regret and self-hatred hit him like a tsunami, leaving his mind completely ripped apart. For the first time in months, Izuku feels. He feels everything. I'm so sorry, Izuku gasps out. His body trembles violently as he kneels in the dirty alleyway. Tears drip down his face. Emotions assaulting him as his heart tries to beat out of his chest and guilt crashes him. He closes his fists until his nails dig into his palms, grounding him as he feels like he is going to suffocate with all the emotions running through him. Before he could spiral too badly, there is another meow, this time closer, and Izuku looks down just in time to see that small head butt against his hand, gently and carefully. Izuku chokes on another sob as he raises his shaking hand to press against the so very soft fur. Another soft meow and headbutt, the movement raising his hoodie sleeve enough to reveal crisp white bandages. His wounds had healed months ago, but he kept them covered, not able to take Inko's expression every time she sees them. The feline nuzzles its head against the bandages, with soft yowls. Izuku can't stop another sob from leaving him. He feels awful. Gently and carefully the cat climbs to his lap, Izuku assisting carefully, cradling the feline as it purrs softly, rubbing its head against him. That's enough to break the floodgates for Izuku. A string of apologies leaves his lips as he sobs and cries, curling around the cat with his shaking body. The sorrowful yowls the feline lets out just make Izuku cry harder. The feline must have been so scared. It had been months. It must have thought he's dead. Izuku could have been dead. He could have died right in front of the only thing that ever made him feel safe and comforted. You're a horrible person, he realizes with more sobs. But he can't hate himself too much, not with the cat staring at him like he's the most precious thing in the world. No one had ever looked at him like that. I'm so sorry. You must have been so scared. I'm so sorry. Izuku forces through his heavy breaths. The feline squirms until Izuku eases his hold. At first he's scared that it has changed its mind about him, but then it raises on its back legs, front paws, pressing against his chest. A rough tongue comes out to lick at his cheeks a few times before it nuzzles its head in the crook of his neck. Izuku hugs his arms around it, soft, whispered apologies still coming out of his mouth. Izuku feels okay. He doesn't feel happy exactly, but he does feel okay, and he is pretty sure that's the closest thing to happiness he can get. He is a husk of who he used to be, the old him, killed, murdered cruelly by the world. This new Izuku, created from the shattered pieces, glued back together in a pathetic attempt to replicate the innocence, the hopefulness he used to have. No, this Izuku would probably never be happy. But in this moment, it is okay. He is okay. The boy has been sitting on the sand of Dagoba Beach for hours now. The sun is setting and he should get back to his house soon, but he doesn't want to leave this imitation of paradise he has been granted. Sunset colors everything in bright oranges, yellows, and reds, warming Izuku gently, just like the feline purring on his lap does. The cat is dozing, not completely asleep, but almost. It too enjoying the moment of delightful peace and comfort. Its black fur shines with the colors of the sun, and Izuku can't help but run his hands through it, hoping to catch some of the colors, to bring them home, and even get a fraction of this heaven for himself. Maybe then his life, outside these moments, wouldn't be so dull, grey, and washed out like him. A paw pokes him in the stomach, a small meow cutting out his thoughts. The cat had gotten good at recognizing when Izuku's thoughts started to drift, when his mind turned stormy and grey and dangerous. Now it made sure to always bring Izuku out of his head every time that happened. It made him want to cry. He felt so loved and cared for. Sorry, Izuku murmurs quietly, hand coming to scratch at the feline behind his ears, getting a meow and some more purring in response. His eyes drift back out to the sea, to the breathtaking view. For the first time in a while, Izuku lets himself be. No anxiety or panic is running through him. The guilt always choking him is manageable, and his thoughts are quiet and peaceful. He feels okay. The boy knows this moment can't last forever, that he has to leave soon, go back out to the real world and back to surviving, because that's all he does, survive. It's all he has done for years now, and it feels so very difficult, impossible even. Still, now he has something he has never had before, someone to keep surviving for, someone to look forward to, something to bring him even a fraction of joy he once had. With soft eyes, Izuku turns back to look at the cat, his green ones meeting the deep black ones, blinking at him slowly. All he feels is love, safety, and comfort. It's perfect. Thank you, Izuku murmurs. Those words don't feel like enough to express even the smallest bit of gratitude he has for his savior, for his reason to keep going, but it's all he has. The black eyes soften, a head coming to butt at his middle with even more purring. Izuku smiles. He thinks he might survive. Well, that's the end of A Reason to Keep Surviving by Angstrat. thanks to Angstrat for letting me record this. It took me so long to get around to it. Like, I started it, but then I didn't end up doing it for like a month. I had gotten halfway through it, and then when I came back to it with more determination, I realized, oh my gosh, I recorded it so terribly. So I restart the whole thing, and then I get like 3/4 of the way, and then I have to stop because I've got big exams coming up. And then I don't feel motivated to do it. I get COVID twice in that time. I get a concussion. Yeah, life is fun. I've finally gotten around to finishing it off. I restarted recording it from the halfway point. But yeah, that's the end of A Reason to Keep Surviving. Thanks to everyone who actually listened to this whole thing. It's been a long thing, about a whole hour. But thanks for watching. And remember, the link to the original fic will be in the description, along with some links to kinds of health lines and phone numbers that you can call.